Halo Infinite's map Behemoth is set on the Halo Ring Installation 07 in and around a desert Forerunner structure, which appears to be part of the installation's tectonic fabrication seams. It has been noted that these architectural features serve a variety of purposes, including remediation and transportation. The structure upon which the map rests has recently risen up through the sands for an unknown reason after lying dormant for thousands of years, and besides this, there is little to nothing else known about this location. The Vestige Carbine is an early Covenant carbine design which was originally manufactured during the Third Age of Reclamation, and while this relic of a weapon was only just rediscovered by the Swords of St. Helios recently, it has already been pressed back into service to aid in modern conflicts. And while the appearance of this weapon is a drastic departure from what many are familiar with when it comes to the modern carbine, the weapon still serves the same purpose, firing in a semi-automatic fashion and still being intended for mid to long-range combat. This variant also bolsters a 20-round magazine filled with the same unique non-plasma irradiated projectiles used in all carbine models. So while it may look different, the Vestige Carbine is just as accurate and lethal as any of the other designs you've come to know and love. The UH-144 Falcon is a versatile multi-purpose utility helicopter built by Mizrahi Armory, which first saw deployment in the late 2490s, but quickly gained favor with the UNSC as it was an economical alternative to the larger Pelican dropships, capable of transporting and deploying troops faster than any previous helicopter while reaching top speeds of over 180 miles per hour. And besides the pilot, the vehicle can comfortably sit up to 5 other occupants, 2 of which having access to side-mounted turrets, which if the UH-144H attack variant would be a set of M460 automatic grenade launchers. But if it were the UH-144S support variant, would be a set of M247H heavy machine guns. The vehicle can also be equipped with a nose-mounted M638 20mm autocannon being operated by the pilot, all of which are capable of providing overwhelming cover fire in almost any weather conditions. And while it has been rarely seen in the post-war era, the Falcon still remains in active service, even now being deployed as a hybrid variant which features both a grenade and machine gun turret. Standing over 16 feet tall, the Sharquoi are a race of sapient Cyclopsian humanoids who were one of the several species biomechanically altered by the Forerunners to fight the Flood. Much like the Letgolo species, individual Sharquoi are unintelligent on their own, but can pool their collective consciousness to function as a single hive-minded entity. The Forerunners found that this hive mind could be interfaced with and controlled, which led to the creation of a device known as the Vertex. But following the end of the Forerunner Flood War, members of the species were preserved in stasis, later being discovered by the Covenant, who incorporated them into their Covenant fringe. The Sharquoi greatly outmatched any other species in strength and durability, but were rarely used in combat due to there being no effective means of controlling them. But with the recovery of the Vertex device from Installation 00, the Jiralhane chieftain Hecabe intended to use hundreds of thousands of these creatures in an attempt to claim power. But his plan was foiled, and the hive and all of the creatures within were destroyed using a Havoc nuclear weapon. And while many former Covenant members believe that the Sharquoi's status after the war is unknown, it has been revealed that there are remote worlds which house hives of Sharquoi, one of which, after the deaths of 50 ODSTs, was also annihilated with nuclear weapons and glassing efforts. Halo Infinite's map Bazaar is located in the west market of Mombasa on Earth, with the map seeming to be set at some point following the Battle of Mombasa, as the city is in the midst of an urban renewal. While the plan to rebuild the city was ambitious and expensive, investment from UEG and UNSC activity at the Voi accession has led to some of the metropolis being revitalized. Numerous businesses like the Roost Star and Cuckoo's Cafe are seen throughout the map, while streets like Hallig Street and Cuckoo Street cut through the area. And when looking to the city skyline, a partially constructed space elevator can be seen to the southeast. This is possibly a repaired Mombasa tether, or is simply its replacement. Season 1 of Halo Infinite's multiplayer opens with a cinematic showcasing a young Lorette Agrina as she evades Covenant forces during the invasion of London in 2552. Moments before a Jiralhane would enter life, a team of Spartans are deployed via drop pod and quickly neutralize the enemies. Then, as the team escorts her to safety, we see that she has been inspired by their actions, which is what leads to her later enlistment into the Spartan 4 program. We then see that Agrina has gone on to become the Spartan commander of the Avery J. Johnson Academy of Military Science, where she now leads the training of a new generation of Spartans. Following this, we cut to gameplay, with the player starting off as a fresh Spartan 4 recruit who has just been shipped off to the Academy on the secret colony world of Nyssa. We enter the facility and received our dumb AI and began our first phase of Spartan training. This included an obstacle course run, weapon drills, and a wargame simulation of Team Slayer. Once we completed this, we met back up with Agrina, who informed us that Zeta Halo had just made a slipspace jump, and that the UNSC Infinity, alongside the Master Chief, are now MIA. Agrina then boards a Pelican and departs. Now, we're not exactly sure where she goes, but this marks the end of Halo Infinite's Season 1 story. The story of the Banished begins in the year 2549, at some point during the Covenant's invasion of the human world of Algolis, and as we're told in the Halo Wars 2 campaign, Atriox and countless Jiralhane were sent in, wave after wave, to wear down the UNSC. They were treated as cannon fodder, as this was a death sentence for all who were sent. That is, with the exception of Atriox, who was the sole survivor every time. But after the meaningless deaths of his countless brothers, he threw down his weapon and refused to continue this cycle, left broken and without faith in the great journey. He was then sentenced to death by his Sangheili superior for his disobedience, but moments before the energy sword would remove his head, Atriox stopped it. He then stood up in defiance and took the life of his aggressor. As other Sangheili jumped in to retaliate, several Jiralhane came to his aid, ending them with brutal efficiency. And as the dust settled, Atriox saw a new path forward. He would free his people from the oppressive rule of the Covenant and give them the means to carve out their own destiny. This was the day that the Banished was born. Halo Infinite's map Recharge is set in the abandoned Access Recharge water treatment facility, and the short lore entry for this map states that it was once a key part of the resource infrastructure, helping provide a stable supply of energy for this unidentified UEG colony world. Taking a look around the facility, we can see that it would have served several purposes, such as power generation through its turbine-powered recharging stations or whirlpool dam room, as well as water filtration and possibly hydrogen production, the latter likely done through a process of electrolysis, which can be seen occurring in the water reservoir just beneath the playable area. Season 2 of Halo Infinite's multiplayer narrative hit the ground running, as Commander Agrina and Academy personnel rush out to the landing zone, meeting a Banished Phantom pulling in overhead. Emerging from it was Spartan 4 Sigrid Eklund and Hugh Din, with Din appearing incapacitated. As our player helped to support the unconscious Spartan, a medic reached for his neural interface but was stopped by Eklund, who feared that tampering with it now may end his life and cause them to lose everything he risked his life for. After Din was stabilized, Eklund revealed that the two had just returned from a recon mission on the Banished-controlled moon of Camber, where they discovered the existence of Iratus, the first known Banished AI. However, when the AI had tried to prevent their escape from the facility, Din allowed Iratus to access his neural interface. This plan worked, but Din was rendered unconscious and was constantly tormented by the AI. Eklund then mentioned an even more significant find, a Banished archive, which Iratus had access to. But to save Din and gain access to that information, they would need to find a way to lure him out once again. The Gasgira, or Skimmers as they're better known, are a race of mysterious creatures who appear to be just as ancient as the Forerunners themselves, believed to have only just been recently freed from Silexes alongside their perceived Xalanan leader, the Harbinger. Looking at their form, they are small, almost bug-like creatures, possessing 2 arms with tridactyl hands, and 4 legs which end with a clawed ankle and large clawed toe, with their legs bending backward into a hyperextended position. And if one were to look underneath their helmets, they would find a set of large black eyes with a set of mandibles and a beak-like mouth structure. And while they certainly could walk, they rarely do, seen almost exclusively utilizing advanced gravitic impellers to suspend themselves and levitate in the air. And much like the rest of their armor, these thrusters appear to be made of an unknown exotic material. Due to the number of traits that they do share with the Xalanan, some running theories are that the Gasgira are a closely related species, are a subservient species created by or employed by the Xalanan, or are just simply close allies. Either way, due to the lack of information on the 2 species, much is left to the unknown. Season 2's narrative event known as Interference picked up just moments after we were first introduced to the Lone Wolves and the captured Banished AI Iratus, who now resides in Spartan Din's neural interface. After this, Agrina pulled us to the side to let us know that the schematics for the Banished facility the Wolves raided was just uploaded to the combat simulator, and now she wants all available Spartans to hop in and run rounds of the last Spartan standing exercise on this new map, hoping that this would irritate Iratus and trick him into leaving Din's armor for a new host. Then, after many rounds in the simulator, we returned to Agrina, who was happy to let us know that the plan had worked and that Iratus was now locked down in the Academy's systems. Din was also now free of the AI's torment and recovering in the infirmary. But in the meantime, Agrina and the techs went to work on getting access to this Banished archive, while we went to the firing range to check in with Eklund. When the Gasgira were first freed from captivity, they were hostile to both UNSC and Banished forces alike. But once an alliance had been formed with the Harbinger, War Chief Eshram issued a force-wide directive to incorporate them into the Banished ranks. And while this was surely an attempt to gain favor with the Harbinger, they weren't exactly met with open arms. Few in number, the common perception of them was that they were unsettling and untrustworthy, and their devotion to this mysterious Xalanan leader had some believe that they might have had ulterior motives. Regardless of this, they were quickly employed as command escorts for leaders and relic hunters, as well as added to existing battle groups on key areas of the ring. Now, we have no reason to believe that the Gasgira had any motives outside of doing what was asked of them by the Harbinger. So following her recent demise at the hands of the Master Chief, there has been some interest surrounding the nature of their ongoing allegiance to the Banished. And sadly, there's no definitive answer that I can give. But if the Endless, who were referred to by the Harbinger, are indeed Xalanan like herself, the final cutscene of the game leads us to believe that they might have been freed. So there's a high likelihood that if the Gasgira knew this, they would abandon their posts in the Banished and come to their aid. It's hard to say though if that would be anytime soon or far in the future, so we're just gonna have to wait until Halo Edge of Dawn is released for answers, as the book takes place immediately after Halo Infinite's campaign concludes. And I don't really ask this often, but as the viewer, what do you think? Will the Gasgira stay with the Banished, or would they go off on their own? Let me know what you think down in the comments section below. Season 2's narrative event Alpha Pack picks up shortly after Agrina had informed us of Iratus's successful detainment and Din's recovery, so we made our way to the firing range to talk with Spartan Eklund. Here she reveals that the two have been working together for years and that Din had saved her life more times than she could count. But with him in recovery, it's a reminder that sometimes a Spartan has to be able to operate solo, and she wants to see what we can do, so she sends us back to the simulator for more rounds of Last Spartan Standing. And after about 2 weeks of training, we return back to Eklund, who lets us know that we did well. But much like the simulations, a Spartan's survival depends on their teamwork and the resources that they can find in the field. Going on to mention that the armor she wears is not standard issue, but instead a history of the choices that she's made in order to stay alive. Again, impressed with our work, she lets us know that there's always room for another wolf in their pack. But with that, Halo Infinite's Season 2 multiplayer story comes to a close. Probably one of the most confusing aspects of MJOLNIR armor is the naming system behind the mark variants and the different generations of armor. So the best way that I can explain it to somebody is that when the MJOLNIR platform first entered development, it was a constantly evolving piece of technology. There were at least 40 experimental armors made in the pre-production phase, and dozens of iterations worn by the Spartan 2s after 2525. Now, despite Catherine Halsey's genius-level intellect, she had not established a proper organizational system for her work, leaving Project MJOLNIR a mess to navigate for anyone other than herself. That's why in 2535, ONI mandated that MJOLNIR adopt a generational categorization system, intended to facilitate serialization, prioritization, progress tracking, as well as to help them with budgeting. Ultimately, this helped to establish a timeline for the armor's past and its anticipated future, identifying the prototype armors made between 2515 and 2525 as Marks 1, 2, and 3, and the models that were currently in production at the time, the Mark 4. This roadmap also outlined 3 more planned iterations, being the Marks 5, 6, and 7, complete with their rough technological specifications. Then, after the end of the Human Covenant War, the Materials Group did a complete overhaul of the MJOLNIR platform as a response to the Spartan 4 project. This complete system-wide rework led to the previous version being retroactively designated as Generation 1 to distinguish it from this new and improved Generation 2. And when MJOLNIR saw another rework in 2559, the resulting platform was then designated Generation 3. And sometimes when you're reading in text, you'll see them referred to as Gen 1, Gen 2, or Gen 3 respectively. Now this explanation might have been a little long-winded, but I hope it helped. The threat sensor is a wrist-mounted piece of UNSC infantry technology compatible with MJOLNIR Gen 3 armor, and it was developed in the years following the Human Covenant War, notably seeing deployment during the battle for Zeta Halo. How exactly this technology works is not explained, but the threat sensor is very straightforward to use. The user simply aims and fires the sensory device, which can attach to any surface, be it an enemy, object, vehicle, or even the user themselves. The sensor will then emit a pulse periodically, which will reveal enemies in its effective range on the user's HUD, even if they are obstructed by structures or terrain. An upgraded variant of the sensor will have a larger detection range and even reveal the location of cloaked enemies. Halo Infinite's map Streets is set in the area that acts as a transition zone between Old and New Mombasa, and it features a variety of small businesses, shop stalls, and is noted as being near the base of the Mombasa Tether reconstruction site. There are several notable buildings seen around the map, including a joint entrance to both Hope and Makupa Station, as well as a new Mombasa Police Department precinct. The area's proximity to Forerunner secrets has made it a hotspot for criminal activity, including nefarious acts from insurrectionists, Covenant remnants, and banished human mercenary groups. But in the wake of the Created's occupation of Earth, the area fell under heavy surveillance and policing, even being the location where the civilian known as Safina was composed for her rebellious actions, as was detailed in the recent Halo Waypoint Chronicle, Moonrise over Mombasa. The M7S is a stealth-focused variant of the M7 submachine gun, which comes equipped with an SSM49 sound suppressor, external flash suppressor, underbarrel flashlight, smart-linked SLS V5B scope, and can also be fitted with a laser sight. The suppressor minimizes noise and muzzle flash, while the adjustable stock provides reduced recoil and improves accuracy at medium ranges. The weapon fires 523mm M443 caseless full metal jacket rounds from a 48-round magazine. It first entered service in 2431 and saw action during the insurrection, notably being used by Spartan 2 Blue Team in Operation Talon to capture rebel leader Robert Watts. It then went on to become a favorite of orbital drop shock troopers during the Human Covenant War, but has remained a staple for ODST personnel in the post-war era. Often, those who are selected for the ODST program come from previous military branches, but this prior experience is only the beginning, as they'll be subjected to a relentless training regimen designed to push them to their physical and mental limits. This process starts with a grueling 3-week conditioning phase, with every day bringing punishing runs, strength drills, and obstacle courses that mimic the chaos of the battlefield. Trainees are forced to crawl through barbed wire, mud, snow, and shattered terrain, while live rounds are fired just overhead. They'll even practice high-altitude jumps to prepare for their signature orbital insertions. Those who survive this first stage and are not sent back to their original post move on to squad tactics, where teamwork and precision become the focus. And this is where one of the program's most infamous exercises occurs, involving full combat gear, training weapons loaded with tactical training rounds, and a mountain climb. Candidates must reach the summit while facing unexpected challenges, such as the instructor deliberately shooting the trainee in the leg with a TTR pistol, temporarily disabling one of their limbs to force creative problem-solving and teamwork. These drills are repeated with increasing difficulty, sometimes pitting trainees against instructors acting as hostile forces, forcing squads to use distractions and coordinated attacks to succeed. After mastering squad tactics, candidates transition to firearm training. Here, smaller units are challenged to complete similar scenarios but operate independently, sharpening their leadership, communication, and coordination. Once each fire team is competent, they are combined with the others, learning how to provide mutual support, suppressive fire, and coordinated maneuvers. The emphasis on layered teamwork ensures that ODSTs can adapt to missions ranging from solo strikes to full-scale operations. And all ODST training is overseen by the 340th ODST Combat Training Unit, a specialized division dedicated to molding these soldiers into highly capable shock troopers. Those who excel beyond expectations may be selected for even more specialized assignments. For example, ODST Morgan Kinsano, recognized for her skill in leadership, was reassigned to the Special Tactics and Equipment Group known as the Hellbringers, where she led the Firestorm Battle Group, a team specializing in anti-infantry combat and advanced weaponry. Super Earth, or Earth as it was formerly known, has a history that lines up almost exactly with our real-world one up until about the early 21st century. Following 2 world wars and a Cold War between the United States and Soviet Union, a worldwide conflict known as the Last Great War would grip the Earth and leave several regions in the Northern Hemisphere irradiated wastelands. There is not much public knowledge on this war, but it is believed that the warring nations included China, Russia, the United Kingdom, and the United States. The war left most of Russia's population centers wiped out, along with the entire United Kingdom, Ireland, and parts of Canada, Alaska, Greenland, and Siberia. But from the ashes of the last Great War rose one government, Managed Democracy, which achieved total unification of the planet on a scale never before seen. Humanity then ventured far out into space, proclaiming themselves as the Federation of Super Earth, going on to share their liberty and create a utopia of freedom and prosperity. The Helldivers are one of the main military branches of the Super Earth Armed Forces, responsible for spreading and defending the ideals of Super Earth against its enemies and delivering democracy at all costs. They are extremely well trained and exceptionally equipped by the Ministry of Defense, being sent deep behind enemy lines through the use of Hellpods, shock-absorbing re-entry vehicles launched directly from orbiting Super Destroyer ships. And in Super Earth society, being drafted into the Helldivers Corps is one of the greatest honors, as the Helldivers are hailed as humanity's heroes, and the fallen, martyrs for Super Earth. But one of the most important moments in their career is once they've passed their rigorous training and are bestowed their Helldivers cape. These are not only seen as a beacon of freedom and hope for Super Earth and all of its citizens, but bring with them a sense of pride unmatched by almost anything in the galaxy. The automatons are a race of socialist mechanical beings, fueled by a bloodlust and hatred for democracy. It is understood that they were created by the Cyborg Nation, a group of cybernetically augmented humans who were enslaved to the minds of the planet Cyberstan, following their failed effort to gain independence. And in the time following their emergence, the automatons have gone on to take many forms, but the underlying factor between their various unit types is their digitigrade legs, skull-like heads, heavy armor plating, and glowing red eyes. And unlike their cyborg predecessors, they are entirely mechanized, and are documented as being mindless killing machines. Now, there is some talk amongst the Helldivers that there has been intercepted automaton chatter, which indicates they could be capable of independent thought or even feeling emotions, such as sorrow for their lost comrades or even the desire to avenge them. One of the questions that I've seen asked in the Halo community, and even one I've asked myself, is whether or not there's still a need for ODSTs in the modern landscape of Halo, especially when you consider the growing presence of Spartan 4s in the UNSC. But I think the answer is actually really simple, because when you consider the cost of a Spartan, their augmentations, the cost of their armor, the overall level of training that most Spartans need to have to even be recruited into the program in the first place, ODSTs will always be a more cost-effective option, or at least be necessary in some capacity to create Spartans in the first place. And frankly, with the state that humanity's in after the created conflict, the loss of several Spartan 4 training facilities, and the fall of the UNSC Infinity, Spartans may once again become a scarce resource. So to answer this question, I believe that yes, 100%, ODSTs will always have a place and continue to be relevant in the Halo universe. While it is not necessarily exclusive to them, you cannot talk about ODSTs and not mention the drop pod, properly referred to as the Single Occupant Exoatmospheric Insertion Vehicle, or SOEIV in short. These drop pods were created for rapid, high-risk orbital insertions, which are often considered more effective than dropship deployment, as it allows for a larger spacecraft to make a quick pass over a world and deploy hundreds of ODSTs in rapid succession. Additionally, since ODSTs are deployed individually rather than in a squad, casualty rate for SOEIV deployment is lower than that of conventional dropship deployment. But what truly makes it efficient and effective is not just that they can be deployed at a moment's notice, but also behind enemy lines or areas that conventional forces cannot access. Inside the drop pod, a single crash seat faces the hatch, which houses a series of communication systems that provide data to the occupant and link the ODST to their squad. Outside the pod, it is protected by a titanium armor shell, but if this shell is compromised before or during re-entry, the entire pod can be lost. Ideally, as the pod nears the surface of its target, panels at the top deploy into a drag chute to slow its descent. Around 1 kilometer above the ground, computer-guided retro thrusters fire, rapidly reducing speed for a controlled impact. And upon landing, explosive charges will blow the hatch free, allowing the user to exit and enter combat near instantly.